Good evening. Good evening, everybody. I see a few people still trickling in, but I think we'll start now. It's a few minutes past 5. So, welcome to this law school webinar, the first of 2024, and uh, this is the continuation of our third year of law school webinars, where law school staff and others share their expertise, their knowledge, and their scholarship with alumni and staff and students and the public and whoever's interested that gets note of the webinar. So welcome. My name is Paul Arnell. I'm an associate professor in the law school. I would like to now introduce our speaker today, and then Alexandr and I are having a conversation after his short presentation. But we've got Alexandr Chernykh here, the Great Britain representative for the Ukrainian National Bar Association, and Alexandr and I are going to speak about the war in the Ukraine and the effect that it has had on the legal profession there. And I was thinking about this, how to say a general comment about at the start about it, and uh, it perplexed me really. But as everybody knows, a humanitarian crisis, a tragedy going on in the Ukraine, and the latest I could read, and that may be accurate or not, with 30,000 people killed in the Ukraine over the past 2 years following the invasion of Russia. But then I think an interesting question and an important one is whether how the country is functioning since that invasion, and in particular from our perspective and from Alexandr's expertise, the legal profession. So what's going to happen now is Alexandr's created a short presentation for us, I think for 10 minutes or so. He'll address some of the questions that we were going to go into in a little more depth later, and then after that presentation is over, we'll just do that. We'll shut the presentation and have a discussion, a conversation, Alexandr and I. But importantly, I think we want to open the event to your questions, and I think it's best if you would use the Q&A box on Zoom to write a question in, and then after 40 minutes or so from now, when we're at that point, I will read through the questions and we'll see what Alexandr has to say about them. So I encourage you to do that, because it makes for I think a better session, and I don't know if we're covering material that you have particular interest in. So please do that. That would make for a good webinar. It's not just Alexandr and I speaking, but addressing some of the issues, or indeed make a comment or a question that you may have. So as I say, please do use that facility at the end. Okay, so I'll just say a few more words about Alexandr. He's as I said, the Great Britain rep for the Ukrainian National Bar Association, living in Aberdeen for the last year and a half or so. Moved here in 2022. He was an advocate, which is the title for a practicing lawyer in the Ukraine for a number of years, practicing commercial law and in EU law, latterly in Kyiv, the capital, and previously living and born in Kharkiv. So we're lucky to have Alexandr. Thank you very much for coming along to speak to us and with us this evening, and welcome. And when you're ready, you can please we'll say hello, and then we can listen to your presentation and then have questions. Please, Alexandr.
Hello, good afternoon all. Hello, Paul. Thank you for your invitation for this wonderful event, because I'm also lecturer in High School of Advocacy in Ukraine. I understand how it's important for one lawyer share experience and different type of experience. Paul, thank you. You sent me before some general question for understanding topic and main idea of our webinar. So now I share my presentation and with question and answers for this question. My name is Alexandr Chernykh. Last 1.5 years I live in for two countries, UK, in Scotland, Aberdeen, and Kyiv. in UK, I support Ukrainian legal professional, advocates, and also Ukrainian refugee. We try to make some legal support, legal aid, and with connection with academics, with Law Society of Scotland, Law Society of England and Wales, and Bar Association and Faculty of Advocates as well. What has been the impact of Russia's invasion of Ukraine on Ukrainian society? It's a very important question because no one was ready for war. In one day, you became just a person, not an advocate, not a prosecutor, not a doctor, not a professor, just a person, individual. And as I read on invitation, Paul sent to all of you list of articles and materials about topic of this webinar, but all of this convention not work in real war. Unfortunately, Russia not fighting, not invasion on the rule of law. They forget everything, then don't use everything, but the Ukrainians became united. We began to use exclusively the Ukrainian language because, you know, it's part of Ukraine after 300 years of part of Russian Empire. Be linguistic. I can speak fluent Russian in Ukraine and change language. It's okay for half of Ukraine. Part of Ukraine, sorry, but in first days we start using just Ukrainian language and special Ukrainian words for understanding its enemy or its friend, its Russian troops or our army. It's very simple because we have a special Ukrainian words, and now it's like meme in internet how Russian try to talk polunitsa and palanitsa, because palanitsa is white bread. We make it in village for Sunday dinner with family. Palanitsa and polunitsa is strawberry. So it's very difficult for Russian pronunciation, Ukrainian words, and in first blog post in roads and our army and our territorial defense member, how check it's Russian or it's Ukrainian. Just please tell me palanitsa or polunitsa. Also, unprecedented union of the civilians and the army. We have a very wonderful example when civilians, just farmers, workers, fighting against tanks without any gun, without any special equipment, but sometimes using bottle with cocktail Molotov. Also in my street, we make it first 2 or 3 days. We collect all bottles and use mix motor oil and petrol and making cocktail Molotovs because we are waiting for Russian. And very important in this situation, because all people was together, support to army, voluntarily gave the dig trenches, organize roadblock, block post, we call it in Ukraine. For example, for 100 kilometers, you can drive through villages and find maybe 50, 40 block posts, and all black post men, hunters check your documents, searching something in your car. It was a good example because every village became a fortress for Russian. And main question for us maybe how have government function been limited or restricted, and how is Ukrainian democracy continuing to function? According to Ukrainian law, we have some exemption for military time. Of course, it's right for manifestation, it's right for election, it's right blocked in time of war. But according to our constitution and Ukrainian law, courts working, still working, because judiciary and advocacy is a part, maybe one of the countries of the European continent where advocacy as a bar association, we are part of constitution, and we are working all days without any restriction, without any exemption. Exciting restrictions such as curfews, bans of moving through the city at night, additional inspection of cars and citizens, and also special documents, special limit license for cross city in the night. Our advocates council in regions working with military civil administration about this. So court working, but how it's working, I'll show you next slide. How has criminal and civil justice been affected by the war? I show you few photo from our advocates' experience. It's not a gangster, it's not hunter, it's all advocates, but it's one of the photo. It's our first meeting after the occupation in Kyiv region. Is the main office, Ukrainian National Bar Association. Part of advocates come to army, part go to territorial defense units, and part of advocates working as a volunteer in humanitarian project. The courts did not administer justice for the first months because was a lot of territory of Ukraine was occupied, bad signal, evacuation, battlefield on the streets. But as I remember, maybe in the end of March, first part of April, justice was restored, and when some caught in the evacuated places after liberation of the territory or return to normal war. And main position of Ukrainian government and Ukrainian bar was state cannot work without judiciary. Many advocates in occupied region were deprived of means of livelihood. It's really problem because advocate and lawyer, it's not realistic job in military time because court not working. I have my first court hearing maybe in August, just in August, because whole process was stopped for 1 month and schedule was destroyed, and judges should and try to return to normal process of judgment. So we arranged humanitarian shipments from our colleagues, from Bar Association of European country, from law societies, International Bar Association as well, to the extent that we are helped by foreign colleagues and humanitarian organization, also as Red Cross and World Food Organization. And for example, in one of the photo on the top, we are in the Kharkiv region council, advocates council, and collect and delivery food box from international food program for advocates, because some advocates in Kharkiv region, in villages, after occupation, after Russian occupation, have no anything for food. But we can work it after judges start working, because we have very wonderful and very modern digital system of justice. For example, has legal aid and the courts been able to meet the needs of justice? All advocates, as well as in-house lawyers in legal entities, because companies also have access for this system, has access to the electronic justice system. We can issue the claims, appeals, have the access to cases online from in any time, from all in any part of planet. In addition, advocates, just advocates, can send paper letters to the court and parties and send evidence from the digital office in the system of the register of advocates, and using digital sign, and Ukrainian State Post Office sending this mail as a paper. Every citizen has a DS system in Ukraine. It's a special application in phone. For example, in my phone, also I have DS system working as like a qualified digital signature or Face ID, and I have this, and I have all access for all my government service, including my digital signature. And it's once application for all mail with court, with state enforcement, tax office, with everything. So it's very easy to have legal aid in Ukraine, even in our wartime, because system work. Sometimes for a day or two after huge Russian attack for energy company, for infrastructure, this system can work in slowly, but all time of war, it's working, and Senate guards will work. I can also find out about the court session from the mobile application. Also, we have mobile advocates can. It's called a digital court system application in phone. And also we have a system of video session works, trial. The main thing is to notify the court 5 days before the trial about intention to be as a trial online. If I understand in my schedule, I cannot be in one part of Ukraine if I'm not in Ukraine. I just send in electronic system special mail for judge about I want to use video session system before 5 days. It's always work. Also, it's now very important in criminal cases, because for safety, for security of people who under arrest in the jail, preliminary jail, they not leave territory of special security organization, and use online service for hearing in a criminal case. It's very normal in practice in Ukraine. How has the war affected the legal profession in particular? Many advocates became the soldiers. Unfortunately, we have dead colleagues who cannot name the number until the end of war. It's official position, and the Minister of Defense and Minister of Justice asked to us not show how many advocates died in the war. UNB created a special fund for help lawyers. Our colleagues from all the world send funds, and we help families of our dead colleagues injured. For example, my colleague, head of land law committee of the National Bar Association, Alexandr Chernykh, a doctor of law, was killed during artillery fire. He was a soldier and ran to save his comrade. Now his family and academics in university, because he was professor in Kiev Mogila University. Have established a degree for talented law students in the field of land law. Another colleague is just last week, and 24th of February was published a president decree about awarded Yuri Sikiransky title of Hero of Ukraine posthumously, and also our colleagues in France, Vladislav Voronin, Yuri Lebedev, Mykola Lazarchuk, Sergei Yarmolenko, Sergei Slebenko, Yuri Sikiransky, Oleg Lebedev, Fedor Panferov. It's just part of our colleagues who go to army and was killed as and died as a hero. And now a lot of advocates now in the army, and we have now discussion in society about mobilization, advocate mobilization, because just now in Ukrainian registry, we have just 47,000 of advocates, working advocates, and maybe 17,000 advocates, men, who can go to army. And now we have a discussion because prosecutors, judges, and policemen, they have exemption from mobilization. But it's very big discussion now in parliament about advocates, because advocates also part of judgment. And if prosecutor not go to army, not fighting voluntary in army, so why advocate should stop aid clients? And but from another part, hundreds of advocates now in army, who is fighting as a soldier, who is officer in office, and we are now create a special system of military justice. And these advocates also still working as and registry in registry of advocates, but not practice, because it's illegal according to Ukrainian anti-corruption legislation. So it's was my last slide, but I'm ready for your question, and maybe I show a general picture of legal profession in Ukraine now. So please.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Alexandr. What a difficult, a presentation to listen to, but I think it's a very, very valuable one. I mean, and this is, I think, part of the reason why we're having our webinars, to understand what's going on in the Ukraine generally, and in particular in relation to the legal profession. But of course, those two are very closely connected. I thought we could maybe have a discussion for 10 or minutes or so, going through some of the points you raised. And I see one question in the Q&A box, but as I said at the outset, I encourage the audience, and I see there's a good number of you, to also add a question in it, and I'll come to read it in 10 or 15 minutes or so. I guess that there's a few very interesting things that you mentioned, and I thought I could maybe ask about them, and I don't know if you would be able to know an answer, but one of the things I was thinking about was whether criminal and civil justice has or whether and how it has been affected. I know you mentioned at the outset of the war, the justice system was stopped operating, if that's accurate, and then has it continued, or is there criminal prosecutions going on? I assume so now. Is there civil justice taking place in Ukraine? And is there any special consequences? And related to the next question about legal aid, I'm sure the government's resources have been hugely drained and affected, of course, by the war, and maybe there's less resources available to fund legal aid or advocates to assist in cases. So how is the war affected civil and criminal justice to this point?
From position of citizens, legal aids still available for ordinary people. Maybe just first months in Kharkiv, Donetsk, Kyiv, Chernygh region, and maybe until May of 2022, it was difficult because traffic, part of bridges was destroyed, few court building was destroyed. But if we talk about terms and periods in the procedure, we have some exemption if you for all time of wartime. For example, if you don't know about some civil cases or claim against you, you have a right for appeal without any terms. It was for first part of war. Now also it's a reason for Court of Appeal return right for appeal if you lost time. About criminal cases, I'm not criminal advocate, but my colleague is working in this field. Everything working like before war, but with few exemption. Of course, we have some troubles with policemen and also, and in general, with anti-corruption organs, because they have a lot of power, and sometimes advocates in criminal case, when they come into cross-examination or in some action, sometimes policemen use maybe, for my position, illegal way for change the advocate. They call to military office, and military guy coming to home of the client and give special order to advocates, go to the army now or next morning. It's also big discussion, and we are try to speak with policemen and prosecutor about these cases. So now, ladies, very popular criminal emergency aid advocates now, because women have some priority in these cases. It's one question for justice, because I think it's illegal, because it's using law not for justice, just for pressing of advocates. In one situation, another situation, it's pass forward in night, because for criminal cases you should come into invitation of investigator or detective immediately, but it's really trouble after 7 p.m. till morning. You should have a special pass, and we are in Kyiv. We are working with civil military administration Kyiv, and get just maybe 25 or 40 special pass for all advocates. But this pass has a name and car number. You cannot send to another advocate. It's really trouble. It's a real big question. But in generally, and courts, if they hear in case for arrest people waiting for advocates and understand it, general procedure, of course, in political cases, in anti-corruption cases, where we have a lot of public interest, government try to break right for defense.
Yes, I see. You raised a couple of interesting points I hadn't thought of, and shamefully, I suppose, the role of female advocates and is been enhanced through, I suppose, through a number of advocates going to fight in the war, and so the proportion of female advocates as the percentage of the overall population has increased. Is that what's happened? Is that a reasonable observation?
It's mm, it's a big question because according to Ukrainian law, if man get an order from military office, he should immediately or next morning go to the army for check information, but in most of situation go to army immediately because mobilization. And sometimes when some it was first episode was when we have a big case with rape, and few young men was arrested, and of course they have advocates, and all advocates get a special order from military office. And no, тут питання в тому, що sorry, and question is not about justice. Question in present and public show to public we are fighting with crime, but government and sometimes policemen not fighting for justice.
Okay, I think I understand. But okay, we can move on to a different subject. I know you and I briefly spoke about this previously about democracy in the UK, in the Ukraine, and how that is managing to carry on after the Russian invasion. Has there been elections postponed, either their federal elections or local elections, or in the role of the legal profession in the operation of democracy in Ukraine since the invasion?
We will. We cannot have any election before end of war. This is position. Yesterday was published official position of election commission about because first election it's president election in May, and next should be in September parliament election, but Central Election Commission talk about president have power at the end of term and before next president will elected in legal election. So this part of democracy instruments not work in wartime, and in general Ukrainians understand this because maybe you know it's old Ukrainian tradition Maidan. It's when people in village or city or in all country not agree with some politics. All Ukrainians go to the street and the central square and fighting for democracy. We make it a two-time and two revolution for the last 20 years. And in every village, in every city, in the regional center, we have few cases in, for example, when two policemen rape one young lady, all city go to the street and pressing on the prosecutor office for arresting this policeman. And we have a lot of cases like this. But now Ukrainians not go to Maidan, any manifestation, because everybody understands it's just plain in interest of Russia, not for Ukrainian side.
Okay, so that's just recently the electoral commission postponed the next presidential election.
They published about guys waiting for end of war.
Okay, I think I've just maybe one more question, and I see we've got a few in the box. The last one I thought was very interesting how the legal profession has been digitized, or the availability of electronic, court hearings or access to legal services, and that's been, I assume, increased as a result of the conflict, sped up, or was it existing even before? It sounds more advanced than the legal profession in Scotland, I dare say.
Main system worked before Corona crisis. So in Corona crisis, we was very happy because all advocates have digital access to court, and we can work. Judges also can work without any personal hearing. So maybe now it's system more safety from cyber attacks, because Russian before 2 days for war, they attack all websites, web pages of all government institution of Ukraine, and now it's working better because have some cybersecurity protection.
Okay, yeah. So in a strange way, COVID was useful in the digitization of that for in the very unforeseen circumstances, of course, of the invasion. Okay, so I think, well, thank you. I know if it's okay, I'll read out some of the questions that have been put into the chat box. I see we've got a few in there, and then if, as I've said a couple times, anybody out there would like to add one, that's fine. So I'll read them because I don't know if everybody can see them. The first question is, someone's welcoming you, Alexander, to webinar and indeed to Scotland. It's so great to have you here in Scotland and Aberdeen in particular. So welcome from one of our webinar guests. And the question is, given the need to think about after the war, do you see Ukrainian lawyers or bar associations ramping up efforts to make sure that prosecution will happen against those answerable for this war? Do you know if Ukrainian lawyers would need support from UK-based lawyers to help them with legal support? So this is a question about, I suppose, the consequences of the war, the legal consequences once it's finished for aggression or war crimes, I assume, or atrocities committed during the war. Would that be in the minds of the legal profession in the Ukraine just now, or is that something too far removed?
Can I separate two answers?
Of course.
First answer about first answer, it's about prosecution against people who answerable for this war. It's very difficult for citizen. It's very difficult for many, for father, as for me, not fighting in legal way with Russia. We try to start collect evidence, and International Bar Association and maybe you said some international organization sent to Ukrainian lawyers, not advocates, for all lawyers, special application for digital evidence, for photo evidence, and this application send signal with place and make its photo according to international and European law as a digital evidence. But we have a big conversation with European colleagues. Actually, they told to us, guys, it's part was official conversation, part not official. Guys, you are part of system of justice. You cannot be prosecutor. Unfortunately, system working like this. Unfortunately, advocate should be against government, against prosecution position. If you advocate of victims, okay, you can make it. You have right, but generally, bar as an organization cannot work in, because if bar try to collect evidence for prosecutors in future court procedure in war tribunal or special international court, it can use Russian part for I cannot find the normal English word, maybe for break your evidence, for mm, for this for break your evidence, for break your system of Ukrainian defense. So be careful with this. If individuals want to call it, okay, but officially barrister advocates cannot work as a prosecutor in these cases. It's one part. Another part, of course, Ukrainian lawyers need for support. And here in Scotland, we have a great support from Law Society of Scotland, from Faculty of Advocates, a few Ukrainian lawyers. We have one chat team, Ukrainian lawyers in Scotland, call it UDIS. It was created as a support of Rob Mars from Law Society of Scotland and Kenneth Young from Faculty of Advocates, and we have a friendly chat, and few Ukrainian advocates now working in Scotland. Someone study for requalification, because unfortunately, maybe not unfortunately, it's your system. You should protect your system. In Europe, we have more easy access to profession. In United Kingdom, you have two different systems, England and Scotland, and we have full requalification. We should have exams. In this case, Ukrainian lawyers need to support. Law Society of Scotland make to us exemption from all fees. We cannot have, we don't pay anything fee for exams. Law Society of England and Solicitor Regulatory Authority make for us exemption for SQU2. We need just to have a SQU1 test after this became a solicitor.
Okay, so well, that's an interesting aspect of the support about assisting or helping facilitate Ukrainian lawyers getting a practicing certificate so they could act as lawyers within the jurisdictions of Scotland or England and Wales. And you were just saying you'd still have Ukrainian lawyers would have to sit the Law Society exams as any non-Scottish qualified lawyer would, but the Law Society has waived the fees. That's interesting. I didn't know that. Okay, mainly was related to, well, not related, I guess, related to the regulation of the profession, but within the Ukraine, how has the regulation of the legal profession been affected in the circumstances? Would the advocates and other lawyers in the Ukraine be still subject to the equivalent regulatory regime? I assume so during the war.
In Ukraine, we have Ukraine. We have any changes from start of war. We have one regulated profession, advocates. It's like solicitor and barrister together.
Okay.
We have one register. We have in every region, we have commission, qualified disciplinary commission. We have one type of exams, one procedure for all Ukraine, but working regional commission. And now we have 47,000 active advocates who working, and maybe 60,000 in registry, but someone stopped it. Right practice. Any changes from start of war just for advocates who go to army? they should stop practice in registry according to anti-corruption legislation. It just if advocates working in army in officer position.
Okay. Okay. We've got, I think, a couple more questions. I think we have time to get to them. One is about the electronic DIA system. Is that how you pronounce it? DIA?
DIA.
DIA. The question is, can both civil and criminal cases be initiated? Can be started during this on the DIA system on a smartphone? And can Ukrainian citizens currently living in other countries initiate a legal action from anywhere in the world using the DIA system?
Not criminal cases, because criminal cases most in paper, and people who prosecuted, they in some limitation, maybe under arrest, in home arrest, and they have just mail from court about next hearing in DIA system, and no any documents from investigator or detective, just from court. In civil cases, if you have some case against you, you will know about this immediately when its claim will register it in system immediately. And generally it's in night. So in night, my phone without any bell, because court system try to send for all advocates all mails from 9 o'clock and during the ringle time.
You have to turn your notifications off or mute your phone, I suppose, in the middle of the night, or we're going beep, beep, beep all night long.
Yes, because if you have a lot of message at night, digital code systems start to work in night. Maybe in day they work for collect all informations. Also difficult when a lot of advocates and party work, and also when after Russian attacks, when some trouble with electricity, the part of system cannot work half a day, and in night start working.
Okay, our final question relates to what we discussed previously, I think, but maybe if you wanted to add to it a little more. How is the bar in Ukraine helping the law enforcement agencies to preserve evidence documents for future prosecutions? You already mentioned, was it the US aid and other organizations which be collecting evidence? Would you save it on your phone or email it to these organizations, or how does that process take place?
As I know, Ukrainian Bar Association, it's NGO. We have National Bar Association. It's like law society in Scotland, and we have Bar Association without national. It's NGO, third sector organization, 20 years old. They're working, and as I know, they're working with USAID in this process because they're not advocates, they individuals, like citizens, and they collect evidence in the system from support from European Union and United States. And yes, they collect, and now we have maybe hundreds, thousands of different evidence from all parts of Ukraine, because as I told before, Russia not fighting on the even, of course, it's maybe unrealistic words, fighting on the rule of warfare or war law, but killing civilians, tortures, rapes, tortures of sorry, I cannot talk about this
Yes.
because it's very emotional. Those first months, we collect a lot of evidence of not human action from Russian, even officers. I understand some soldiers from wild villages from some Siberian can make it because they not They don't know even what is water closet, toilet. They don't use toilet in cities, just in street. Part of Kiev region was occupied. Next village from my village, I live in north of Kiev, very close, maybe like Peter Culture from Aberdeen. And for example, next village was occupied and totally destroyed. Women was raped, men was killed, children was raped after burning. How it's collected and how many application you should use if all Russian soldiers, it's an international war criminal. And sorry.
No, thank you very much for your answer. I mean, a truly harrowing, a tragic humanitarian crisis. I mean, and unfathomable, really. I remember when the war, was when the troops were massing, the Russian troops on the border, and I thought, it couldn't happen in Europe in the 2020s. A full scale war or invasion. And it's a shocking tragedy. But I would, and this is not well, I guess as positive as you can be or something. But if this evidence is collected, you can only hope and pray that one day, justice will be done for these acts committed on Ukrainian soil. Well, thank you very much for coming along, Alexander. Is there any final thing you would like to say to your audience? I mean, we're glad you're in Scotland and for sharing that information with us and how the legal profession is coping or trying to cope in these unprecedented circumstances. Would you like to say any final thoughts?
Because most of our colleagues now it's student, as I understand. I hope main idea, my I really love in my university time history of law and history of state. I know about British history, maybe most main facts, and Ukrainian history, European history, history of revolution, for example. But when lawyers speak, guns is silent. So our professional very important for people, and thank you for British lawyers, for Scottish colleagues, for English colleagues who returned to me feeling of justice, because your system, it's not just a word, because all Ukrainian advocates who now working here or living in UK understand justice. It's like code for computer for civilization. Rule of law, it's part of your code, and please defend this code, share this code. It's part of answer for did Ukrainian lawyers need some share education or support. Share this code, and best example, all business go to London arbitration. It's why, it's because you have a justice, it's a rule. So I don't believe that artificial intellect can change sometimes advocates. It's because it's people. All modern technology just can to help us. Now we are speaking about digital system. I work in today a few hours in digital code in Ukraine, but I remember printing machine. No, but it's just some facilitation for our job. But main part of lawyer life and lawyer job, and here in your mind, in your heart, in your education, and your feeling of rule of law. And it's Paul, for answer for your question, first question before, why I chose UK, because rule of law. For me, for lawyers, fan of history of law, it's very important when society living on the rule of law.
Well, thank you very much, and that's a very apt way to conclude. I know our students are taught about the rule of law, and sometimes they take it for granted that how utterly important it is for society generally, and within the UK and indeed beyond. And so that's an excellent message to end on. So thank you very much, Alexandr. Okay, well, that's almost perfect timing, just about 6 o'clock. So on behalf of the law school, I would like to thank you very much for coming and sharing your knowledge and experience, and including on some very harrowing things. But that's, I think, important to do. And we wish you all the best, and hopefully we can have another webinar in a year's time or so in a lot better circumstances for the Ukraine. Okay, well, thank you very much, Alexandr.
Thank you very much. See you.
Okay.
See you.
Okay, thank you very much. Goodbye, everybody. Thanks for coming.